All right, everybody. So the title of my presentation for today is Keeping Young Learners Engaged, Tips and Strategies in Online Classes and Blended Learning. And so the idea behind this webinar is that when we are teaching online classes, the types of teaching strategies that we use have to be a little bit different because many times what we do in the classroom doesn't exactly translate into an online environment. So today I've come up with some ideas to make classroom learning more engaging, more exciting in the online classroom, and particularly for young learners, because as we all know, young learners have short attention spans, they get easily distracted. And so we want to come up with ways to keep them engaged while also making sure that they're learning. So let's go ahead and jump into our agenda for today. One second. Okay, everybody. So first of all, I want to welcome you to join me on this online teaching adventure today. Okay, so just to go over the agenda for the day, first, I'm going to introduce the characters that are going to join us on this journey, and then we're going to go through the different points that we're going to talk about. So here we have our two main characters for this adventure. Let's call them Timmy and Tina, okay? Easy to remember. So we have Timmy and Tina, and they are going to go through this forest map, and their dog Spot is at the end of the journey. Now, as you can see here, there's been an earthquake and the ground is breaking up or cracking. So Timmy and Tina have to save their dog Spot from the earthquake, and to do so, we have to go through this map. Okay, so at the beginning, we're going to start by talking about motivation and different ways that we can motivate students, what makes people motivated, and just have a little discussion about motivation in general. Then we are going to move into story-based learning. So I'm going to talk about story-based learning as a teaching technique, as a learning framework, and how we can use that in the classroom to make our lessons more engaging and more interesting. So after talk about story-based learning, we're going to talk about classroom application more specifically and how we can use this in the classroom using real classroom materials. From there, we're going to do a lesson walkthrough. So I'm going to be using phonics as the lesson for the day and show you how you can transform your phonics class into an online teaching adventure for your students. And then within the lesson walkthrough, I'm going to be giving you some phonics teaching tips. And finally, we're going to rescue our dog Spot and do a wrap up where we talk about, we review what we've done throughout the webinar, and you can ask me any questions that you have. All right, so if everyone is ready to go, let's get started. All right, so when it comes to motivation, the first thing I want to ask all of you guys is, what motivates you to learn new things? So what I want you to do is, I want you in the chat box to really quickly type me some answers. What motivates you to learn new things? Whenever you learn something new, where does the motivation come from? Okay, so please go ahead and type your answers. Tell me what motivates you to learn. And let's see what you guys come up with. Curiosity. Okay, very good. So when something makes you curious, grabs your attention, and then it motivates you to learn about it. That's very nice. Passion. Okay, so when you're passionate about something, something excites you, then you want to learn more about it. And sometimes needs. That's also a very good answer. Thank you. So yeah, when you need to do something, and something is important to you, then you want to learn more about it so that you can achieve your goal. All right, these are all very good answers. Thank you guys so much. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, what helps you stay motivated? So a lot of times we are motivated in the beginning, but over time, our motivation kind of goes down. So what keeps you motivated? And I see that someone here has written reward, and that's an excellent answer, right? Because giving us rewards keeps us motivated. As you see here in the picture, right? The carrot that the person is chasing is kind of a reward, right? Very good. Reaching my goals is another good answer. Seeing results. So when you try hard and you get a good result, that keeps you engaged and makes you want to continue. All right. Thank you very much, guys. These are all very good answers. So let's continue and let's talk a little bit more about motivation. Okay. So in all the psychological literature that exists out there, psychologists mainly identify two types of motivation. And this is going to be very important a little bit later on when we talk about what we want to do in the classroom. All right, so there are two types of motivation, and they are intrinsic and extrinsic. Now, before I show you anything, any pictures, or before I give you any definitions, I want you in the chat box to tell me what you think the differences are between the two. So if you very quickly just look at the first part of each word, the prefix, we have in and we have ex. So what do you think those things mean? Inside and out. Yeah, that's very good. And so how does that relate to motivation? Yeah, very good. Internal and external. Okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you, Fatma. So the idea is that there are two types of motivation, internal and external. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about those two. Okay, so if we look at this picture, we see two boys playing soccer. So the first boy, he is driven by extrinsic motivation. Okay, so he's motivated to perform, to earn a reward or avoid a punishment. And these are things that come from outside. Okay, so these are outside factors that are motivating him. Now, if we look at the other boy, he is motivated by intrinsic motivation. So he wants to perform this activity for its own sake and for personal rewards. So if you had to choose between the two boys, which of the two do you think enjoys the sport more? Is it the extrinsically motivated boy or the intrinsically motivated boy? What do you guys think? Which one enjoys the sport more? Aha, very good. So intrinsically motivated, the second boy, exactly. Okay, now, so the question we have to ask ourselves is, how do we channel this intrinsic motivation? How can we make that a part of our online classes to get the students motivated in a way that doesn't require external rewards or external factors, right? So let's move on now. A question I want to ask you guys before we continue is, what are some things that are intrinsically motivating no matter our age? And so as we run through this list, as we come up with ideas and brainstorm, we can think of things that everyone likes that are motivating in themselves so that we can get an idea of what we will need to make our students more engaged. So what do you guys think? What are some things that make us motivated intrinsically? Emotional encouragement. Okay, so this is coming from outside when someone tells us, hey, you're doing a really good job. That is a little bit in the middle, right? Emotions when they come from ourselves. Yes, very good. Praise is external, comes from outside. Listening, supporting. So these are all extrinsic motivation, right? So let's look at some examples of intrinsic motivation, something that we like within ourselves. So I've got some examples here. All right, so cute baby animals. Who doesn't like cute baby animals, right? If I tell you, hey, I'm going to give you $10 so you pet this little kitty, do you need my $10? Or if I tell you, hey, do you want to pet this kitty? You probably want to do it just by yourself because the kitty is cute, right? So this is intrinsically motivating. All right, now, what about the next one? So how about delicious food? If I give you a plate of delicious food, do I then have to give you money on top of that and tell you, hey, I'll give you this money if you eat the food? No, of course not. You want to eat it because it's delicious. It is intrinsically motivating. All right, what about the next one? So games. Games are fun. We like them. They're challenging. I don't have to tell you, hey, if you play this game, I'll give you a reward, right? The game itself is a reward. And finally, stories. Okay, stories are intrinsically motivating. There's something about stories that everybody, no matter how old you are, really enjoys. And so this is going to be our focus for the rest of this presentation, right? Stories and how we can use stories in our online classroom to make the classes more exciting. So now that we've talked about motivation, let's go ahead and move to talking about story-based learning, okay? So now let's look at this picture here. So when you see this picture, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? I want you guys to tell me in the chat box. How do you think the students feel sitting there in front of the teacher, listening to a story? So what emotions do you think the students are feeling? You guys go ahead and type in the chat box. Attention, they can connect well, connect to real life, okay? These are great answers. What else? What do you guys think? They're engaged, definitely, right? You can tell here, this boy, he's looking at the teacher with his mouth open. He's very excited or very interested. And so are the rest of the students, right? And this is what we want. We want our students to be engaged in our classroom too. And so what I'm going to talk about next is using storytelling as a learning tool, all right? So let's go ahead, and before we move on, let's look at 3 questions that we're going to need to answer first, all right? So first question, what is story-based learning? Second question, what are the educational and motivational benefits? And finally, how do we implement it in the classroom? All right, so let's go ahead and answer the first question. What is story-based learning? So I'll just tell you guys straight away. First of all, humans are storytellers, okay? This is just part of our identity, right? We are hardwired to describe and define our experiences using stories. So story-based learning is a teaching model, okay, which is based on this idea, the idea that adding story elements makes learning more motivating and also easier to organize and manage in here, in your head, okay? So this is more or less the basic definition of story-based learning. Now, let's talk about some of the motivational benefits. How can we motivate students by including story elements into our classes? So a well-designed story will elicit 3 kinds of intrinsic motivation. And actually, you guys have already mentioned some of these, so that's really good. Let's look at the first one. So a well-designed story makes students feel what? What do you guys think? Write it in the chat box. What emotion is this? Let's see. Somebody already said it, right? This boy, he's looking over this fence because he feels curious. Yes, thank you very much. Awesome, great answer, guys. So a well-designed story will elicit curiosity, which is one form of intrinsic motivation. Then here is another one. So if you look at this picture here, what do you think this person is feeling? Right, they're looking up at the wall, and how do they feel? Lost, okay, that's possible. That's a possible answer. Admiration. So what I've gone with here is challenge, okay? So stories are challenging. There are many twists and turns often, and they keep us guessing. So a well-designed story is going to give students something to think about, and then it will keep them guessing and keep them more engaged, right? Now, finally, if we look at this picture, what do you think this has to do with motivation? So we've got curiosity, challenge, and a well-designed story should also be, aha, so someone said it, aim. Okay, thank you, Suresh Babu Pachiri. So a well-designed story also gives us a sense of achievement. So we started off with curiosity. Then as the story moved along and progressed, it became challenging. We want to know what's going to happen next. And finally, when we finish the story, we feel a sense of achievement. Okay, so these are more or less the different kinds of emotions, the kinds of feelings that we want to give to our students with our lessons. So the next question, the practical question is, how do we implement this? Okay, because it sounds really good and interesting, but how do we actually do this in the classroom? So what I want you guys to do is to think back on everything we've just talked about. And now I'm going to ask you, what part of any class is most like a story? If you think about a class that you teach, right, from the beginning to the end of the class, what part of the class seems or feels most like a story? Okay, so in the chat box, please tell me, what part of the class? Someone here says introduction, Noor Halal. Okay, that's a very good idea, Noor. So introduction is kind of like a story. And how? How is the introduction like a story? What part of the introduction makes it feel like a story? Let's see what you guys say. Aha, so when we introduce the lesson, we can introduce it as a story. This is exactly right. Thank you so much. So this is what I'm going to be telling you guys about next, right? So when it comes to classroom application, we have this, all right? Now, all of you guys, I'm sure, have seen this or have used this in your classes, right? And this is our daily task poster board or daily task chart, right? So at the beginning of every class, we tell our students, okay, guys, so today we're going to do this, then we're going to do this and this and this. And these are very useful and helpful, right? Because they help to guide our students and keep them focused on the different parts of the lesson. And also they establish expectations so the students know where they're going to be moving. Now, in the online classroom, of course, we can show our students this at the beginning, and that's great, but it doesn't really have the same impact. So what I want to talk to you about next is how you can transform the daily task chart into an actual story, okay? Now, before we do that, let's go ahead and look very quickly at story elements that we need to introduce so that our online classroom daily tasks chart actually feels like a real story. All right, so very quickly, when we look at a basic story, it has a couple of elements. So the first thing is that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, so this is something that we can keep in mind, right? Now, when it comes to the actual plot of the story, right, every story has a lot of the same ingredients. So when we start the story, we're going to introduce characters and setting. And this is the hook. This is what's going to grab our students' attention at first and hopefully keep them involved later on. Now we introduce characters and settings, and then we also have to introduce a problem, right? Every good story has a problem or a conflict that we need to solve by the end of the story. Okay, now moving on, as the story progresses toward the middle, we see that our characters face different challenges. So there are some setbacks and some obstacles that they have to overcome. And as they overcome these obstacles, eventually they get to the resolution. And so they solve their problems and the story reaches its end. All right, so with these basic ingredients, you can create an online class that is going to really keep your students engaged and involved. All right, so let's move now from the online teaching adventure into a phonics specific story. All right, so as we said before, we've got our main characters here, Timmy and Tina, and we've got their dog Spot, and their dog Spot ran away and now he's lost. But there's a problem. An earthquake happened and Spot is very close to this hole in the ground. So we have to rescue Spot. But before we can rescue Spot, we have to follow this map. Whoa, sorry about that. We have to follow this map and make our way to the end. And we have a few places that we need to stop at first. So the way that I've organized this map is based on the daily tasks that I would use in my phonics class. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do our daily song. At the beginning of the class, we're going to start with a song, right? Then we're going to walk to learn new words and sounds. And after we introduce those words and sounds, we're going to do some practice. After we practice, we're going to play a game. Then we're going to review and wrap up. Now, looking at this map, right, we want to think of some obstacles or some challenges that our characters need to overcome before they can rescue their dog, right? It can't be too easy. If we just walk through the map, then it's not as fun. So let's look at this map and look at the different elements. And then I want you in the chat box to tell me what are some obstacles that our characters might encounter or that they might face during their journey to rescue their dog. What do you guys think? So looking at the map, what are some obstacles that you could use from this map, from this picture, to make the story more exciting? Okay, climbing. Yeah, that's very good. So we have to climb this mountain, everybody. So now we're going to practice the words that we've learned. And the more we practice, the higher we will climb the mountain. Okay, it's easy enough. Great. What else do you guys see? What can we use as an obstacle here? The bridge. Okay, very good. We need to cross this bridge. All right, that's an excellent one. Anything else? All right, so as you guys think of more ideas, let me give you some examples of ideas that I came up with. All right, so before we need to cross this bridge, that we're going to establish this fact. Now, before we can cross the bridge, there are some deer, and the deer are blocking the path, right? Now, let's look at the deer and see what's going on with them. Oh no, the deer is sad. He's crying. Ha, I know. Let's sing our daily song and try to make the deer happy. Okay? All right, so you can see that using the deer, I've made an obstacle and I've given the students something to motivate them so that they can sing the daily song, because they know that if they sing the song well, the deer will be happy and then they can cross the bridge. Okay, so after we sing the song, ta-da, the deer is happy. Hooray, good job, everybody. So now let's cross the bridge. Right? We can cross the bridge and then we can reach the camp. Now, at the camp, I see that there's a Jeep, right? So we can tell the students something like, all right, everybody, now let's get in the Jeep and let's drive to the mountain. Uh-oh, we have a problem. There's a flat tire. Okay, everybody, let's do this. Let's fix the flat tire. And to fix it, we have to learn and practice some new words and sounds. So are you guys ready to learn new words and sounds? And then we can fix the flat tire. Okay, so we have another motivating aspect. And after we do that, we show them that the tire has been fixed. Hooray! So now we're going to drive up the mountain. Okay, now we're going to practice. So when we reach the mountain, we have to climb it. And the more we practice, the more we climb until finally we reach the top. Hooray! So again, another check mark, another checkpoint on the way to the end of the story. Now, as we're moving down the mountain, we see something very scary. It's a wolf. Oh no. So this is our villain. Okay. Every good story has a villain. And now the wolf, he's going to scare us. He's going to try to eat us, or he's going to trick us. And so we have to beat him in different ways. And later I'm going to tell you how you can use this wolf to do lots of different activities in the class. All right. Okay, so we're moving along from the wolf, and finally, we can rescue our dog. All right, so now you don't only have to use one type of story, right? I just found this map on Google, and I just took the picture and put it into my PowerPoint presentation, and the same goes for all of these pictures. Every picture I showed you, I just found and incorporated it. Now, you can find lots of different pictures and just have this same kind of basic story in lots of different ways. So for example, here I've got a different map of a town. And so I've got my two students, right? And they have to get to school. So let's say that it's morning and they have to get to school, but before they can get to school, oh no, here's this villain, and he's, let's say, the owner of some shop, and on the way to school, we stop at the farm, we stop at the market, but we spilled some milk on the table, and now he's angry, so we have to clean it up, whatever. So that's one possibility. Then I've also found this treasure map. And so here our main character is a pirate, and he wants to find this treasure. But before he can reach the treasure, he has to defeat these bad pirates. Okay, so the idea is the same, right? We have our characters in the beginning that we introduce in our setting. These are the hook. And then we have our main problem and some obstacles along the way. And then we have our conclusion. Okay, so what is the point of all of this? Why are we doing this? Well, the story is a tool to establish classroom expectations. So because we're not in the physical classroom, we can't do lots of things that we would usually do, right? And we can't keep track of all of our students in terms of how they are responding to the class, right? So students can get bored, they can look away, they can do other things. So this is going to establish classroom expectations, and it's going to help guide them and make sure that they're paying attention throughout the lesson. And another way of putting it is that we are training students to learn in an online environment, which is new to many of them, something that they're not used to, right? They don't know exactly how they should learn when they are online. The teacher is not next to them. They're just looking at a screen many of the times. So we're training them. We're showing them, this is how you learn. This is how we want you to learn, right? As you move along, you can gradually drop some of the story elements, right? As the students get used to the learning format. And that way, then, if the students already know what to expect, you can kind of shift into a more typical kind of lesson. But in the beginning, and especially with young learners, this is going to be a very useful tool to make sure that they are engaged and paying attention throughout the lesson. Okay, now, we've talked about classroom application, so let's go ahead and move into a lesson walkthrough. Okay, so I'm going to switch from our online teaching adventure to our phonics adventure. All right, so let's go ahead and start the adventure. So everybody, we are going to rescue our dog, as we've said before. But before we can do that, we have to cross this bridge with this river. And as I said before, these deer are in the way. And oh no, the deer is sad, he's crying. I know what we can do. Let's sing our daily song and let's try to make the deer happy. Okay, so here I'm going to use materials from some of our books. So this is from our Come On Phonics series. And this is taken directly from there. And this is the introductory song. And you can just take this directly out of the teaching materials from there. But if you don't have this type of daily song in the books that you're using, you can always go to YouTube and just find some song that you can teach the students that is easy so that they can get warmed up, and it'll make sure that they're ready to start learning before you just throw any of the lesson materials at them to get them started. So
I can sing the phonics song, yeah! A says apple, apple. B says book, bed, bed. C says cat, cat. D says dad, dad. E says egg, egg. F says fish, fish.
oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So before we move on really quickly, the point that I want to make with this is that in your first class, you can even introduce the song itself and teach the students the lyrics so that later in the beginning of each lesson, they actually know how to sing it, right? Because you don't just want to tell them, here you go, guys, let's sing this song, but they don't know the words, right? You want to teach it to them first. And that in itself could be almost an entire lesson or even half of a lesson, right? So let's move on. We finished our song, and that's really great news. And now we're going to, oh, sorry. 1 second, guys. My PowerPoint looks like it's frozen. No. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Let me reopen the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. I'll share my screen with you in 1 second. Why do you do this? Okay, where are we? Yeah, we're here. Oh, okay. So screen share. Ready. Go. All right, everybody. Can you see my screen? Perfect. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so we've sung our song, and now, ta-da! The deer is happy. Great job, guys. So let's go ahead and let's walk to the camp. Okay, now we're at the camp. We're going to get into our car, but oh no, the car has a flat tire. We have to fix it before we can move on. How are we going to fix it? Aha, I know. Let's learn some new words and sounds. And after we finish learning those words and sounds, we can get in the car and drive away. So when you introduce new words and sounds, there are lots of different things you can do. This book particularly has some introductory songs, but then I'm also going to show you the actual book material in a second. So let me show you this first.
Ah, 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 ah. N, ah. Nap. Nap. R,
Okay, so whenever you introduce a new unit, there will always be this kind of video that you can use to introduce the sound for that unit. Right now, if you don't want to do that, or if that's not something that's available to you, then let's go ahead and jump into let's share this. Okay, so this is what the phonics lesson looks like in the book, and this is the ebook, and you can just go ahead and introduce the words here too.
Page 6. Unit 1. Short vowel A.
Listen and repeat.
Short A. Ah. Ah.
All right, so this is when you're already out of the story and in the phonics, the actual phonics content. And of course, before you start this, you want to introduce the letter sound. So you want to tell the students, all right, everybody, today we are going to learn the ah sound, right? And then you go ahead, introduce it, and you have this material here. So here we're going to introduce each of the sounds separately. Then we're going to test if they can hear the ah sound, right? So
Page 7.
Listen and circle.
1.
Fan. Fox.
right? So you can ask them, you can, oh, sorry. So you can do that again and ask them, okay, everybody, so which of these two words sounds like ah? Is it fan or fox, right? So, and then you have trace and say, and this is going to be something that they're going to be writing in. And then we can move on to introduce some of the other words. So very, very quickly, let me move to the next page to show you. So this is what the words for the unit would look like. There are 8 in total, right? We had cat, and we had fan, and then we have bat, hat, rat, can, man, pen. Right, so let me go back to the presentation now, and let's talk about how we're going to practice teaching these words. Some tips and techniques. Okay. All right. So yeah, we fixed our wheels, and now we're going to practice. We've introduced all the words. So we're going to climb the mountain, as we said, and then at the end, we're going to reach the top. Now let's talk about some phonics activities and games that we can use besides the ones in the book. Right, so I've got a couple of examples here, and let's go through them together. I'm going to show you how we can actually use them. So we've got drive-through, word connector, segment counter, and puppet time. Let's start with drive-through. Okay, so very quickly in the chat box, has anybody here seen this kind of activity before? Yes or no? Yes, okay, very good. And the question is, how does it work? What do you have to do here? What's the point of the activity? Somebody give me the answer, please, in the chat box. What is the car there for? What is the reason for the car? Any ideas? Okay, so it's very straightforward. And this is something that I recommend all of you guys get when you teach phonics. Okay, I'm going to be using my whiteboard, my marker. And if it's possible, you should also tell your students' parents to get them one of these too, because if your students can use one of these while they're learning with you, you can check how their writing looks and check that they're actually getting the ideas. But if not, it's okay. Paper and pencil is fine. And you don't even have to check right away, but let me show you how this works. So let's say that our word is cat. So you want to drill this with your students. And what you want to do is you want to show them the word. Okay, everybody. So now we're going to say this word, but we're going to stop at each letter. So I want you to tell me the letter sound first, okay? So are you guys ready? What sound does this letter make? And the students are going to say, very good. Okay, what about this letter? What does that say? Ah. And then, very good. What about this one? T. Okay, now let's put them together. T. Cat. Okay, so this is called the drive-through, and it's just a way to get the students to understand that each of the independent sounds or phonemes of the words has its own sound, and then when we put them together, we make the word, right? Pretty simple. Okay, let's go to the next one. Next one is pretty similar. It's called word connector, and what we can do is we can make the letters, and then we can show the students each one, we connect them, same principle, same idea. And this is a way to drill the new vocabulary with the class. So this one is a little bit similar, but it involves more of the body. Okay, so this is called segment counter, and we're going to do each sound independently, but we want our students to show us with their fingers what each, how many sounds they hear. So with the word cat, I want you guys to hold up your hands and show me your fingers. Ready? So let's start with the first sound. K, a, t, cat. So how many sounds did you hear, everybody? Did you hear 2 sounds? No. Did you hear 1 sound? No. You heard 3 sounds? Yeah, 3 sounds. Okay, to make sure that they understand each word has this many different sounds, right? And then we also have puppet time. So do you guys remember the wolf that we introduced as our enemy or as our villain? Well, what I've done here is I've printed out a picture of the wolf, and I'm going to use this wolf in our activities to make them more fun for the students. All right, so let me show you what that looks like. Let's go back for a second to our ebook for a minute. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw, or sorry, let me resume my share. Okay, I'm going to use the draw feature in the ebook, and I'm going to circle the incorrect answers on purpose. Okay, so you don't have to get nervous. This is can goes over here, ant, and that's man. And let's do this and this. Okay, and now, so you're going to let your students do this first, and while they're doing their activity in their books, you can do this, and this is what I'm going to do now. Ready? Okay, everybody, let's check our answers. Hello, everybody. I'm the big bad wolf, and I'm here to trick you. Oh no, wolf, what are you doing? Don't do that. All right, everybody. I wrote the answers, and I want you to tell me if the answers are right or if they are wrong. Okay? So, all right. So you show your students the pictures, or you show your students the answers that the wolf wrote, and of course they're all wrong. So then they help you correct them, right? So you would ask the students, okay, everybody, let's look at the answers and let's check if the wolf is giving us the right answers or if the wolf is tricking us. Okay, so the first one, number 2, is that correct, everybody? Is that a can? Does that say can? No, so the students should tell you, right? They should say no. All right, so what's the correct answer? Let's erase this and let's check the correct answer, everybody. Or you can have the students show you, hold up their books so you can see their answers. Or if they have one of these, you can ask them to write it for you. So, okay, everybody, let's write the word can on our whiteboard and then let's see it. Ta-da! That way you can check to make sure that they actually know the answer. And here we can click and see what the correct answer is. Let me get rid of this. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So that's the correct answer. And then you can go through all of them and fix them. And that way you've used the wolf, the villain in your story, as a tool to make the learning more exciting and more interesting, right? Because the bad guy, he's bad, he's trying to trick you. So, but you're not so easily tricked. You're smart, so you know the correct answers, and you're going to tell me, the teacher, the correct answers, right? Okay, now let's go back to the presentation and let's see what some of the other learning techniques are that we can use. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so now the next 3 things that we can use are called letter switch, tell me when to stop, and jump and stop. Okay, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of these before, but let's go ahead and check. All right, so letter switch, very straightforward. The idea is that you are going to move letters around and ask students to tell you what they say. And this is going to make sure, this is going to, first of all, engage their critical thinking because they have to remove sounds and replace them, right? And it's also going to give them a lot of good drilling practice. So in this case, our vowel sound is A, so we're going to leave that, but we're going to move these around and manipulate them so that the last 2 letters are either T or N, and then the first letter is changing all the time. So moving back to the ebook, let's see what we can do with this. All right. Okay, so now if you guys look at this activity here on page 11, this is a perfect example of a word replacement or substitution activity, right? So as you can see here, the students have to identify the word that matches the picture, and they have to circle the ending sounds, okay, if it's AN or AT. So one thing you can do with this activity is, actually, yeah, so this is called the flag game. All right, so if you look here, what I've got 2 flags. One flag says AT, the other one says AN. And so you're going to have your students make these themselves. And the day that you want to do this, actually the day before you do this, you should let the parents know that they should get their students some Post-it notes because we're going to need them the next class. And so when you introduce this activity, you tell your students, all right, guys, let's take out our notes. And I want you to do 2 things. On one of the notes, I want you to write AN. AT, sorry, all right? And then I want you to stick it and make a flag. Okay, so you show them how to do it, and then AN, right? And so you let them do this activity first, and then later you say, all right, everybody, let's check the answer. So for the first one, what I want you to do is I want you to hold up the flag that has the same letters, all right? So the students should check their flags. They should say, it's this one. And then they should show it to you on the screen. And even after you're done with this, you can continue playing this game using the flashcards, right? You don't need the activity in the book. So here, I've got flashcards, right? All right, everybody, what is this? And they should say cat and show you the AT flag. All right, very good. Now, what is this? That's a bat. So they should show you their card, and then you flip it over and show them bat. Okay, and so this is more or less the idea behind this activity. Let me pause it and go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, and oh, sorry. Yeah, so this is the letter switch, right? Or part of the letter switch. Now, tell me when to stop. This is another activity that is really fun to do that you can use, and basically goes like this. Okay, I'm going to show my students a picture. So let's say I show them bat, and I say, what is that? And they say bat. And I say, very good. Now I need you to help me spell it. Okay, everybody. So I'm going to touch the letters, and I want you to tell me when to stop. Okay, so here we go. Ready, start. Stop. All right, and so you can give your students cues. You can tell them, okay, if it's not the right answer, then say next. And if it is the right answer, then say stop. So they would say something like, next, next, stop. Okay, and then you would ask them, okay, very good, that's correct. So what does that say? Bat, right? Okay. And so the next one, jump and stop, very similar idea. The only difference is that they have to use their body to tell you when to stop. So here for this idea, you tell them, okay, everybody, I want you to jump when you see the right letter. Okay, so let's start. Next, next. And then here they should get out of their chair and jump. So you should see all of the students jumping in front of their camera. And this is a great way to get them to use their body and do some kinesthetic learning. All right. So now up and down and flag game, we've talked about it. Let's talk about up and down. So let me go back to the book and show you how up and down works. Okay, so as you see here, we've got an activity where they have to circle the word and choose the correct vowel sound, right? So in this picture, there's an up and there's a down. So when you're checking this answer, what you can tell the students is, all right, everybody, let's check the answers. So this is what we're going to do. If the correct letter is up, I want you to show me up, okay? Now, if the correct answer is down, I want you to show me down. Okay, so up, down. Now in number one, what does this say? This says rat. Very good. So is this up or down? And they should say up. Okay, very good. All right, so that's up. Now let's look at the next one. It's down, etc. After you finish that, you can go ahead and drill using flashcards again. So you can do this. Okay, we have AN and AT. And then, all right, are you guys ready? Bat. Okay, is that up or down? And then they should show you with their hands which one is up, which one is down. All right, now pause this for a minute and go back. All right, so moving to the next slide. As you guys have seen, these activities that I've shown you, each of them involves lots of different learning styles, right? So we've got some auditory learning with some of the songs that we've practiced. We've also got visual learning, but we've also got kinesthetic learning. So we're having our students use their bodies, jump up and down, show us with their hands what the correct answer is, right? And all of these things are things that we can do to make our students more engaged. So we've got the story part of the lesson, which is going to keep their attention. But then we've also got all of these activities, which are going to keep them engaged as well, because they are asking the students to be more active, right? They're not just looking at the screen and learning passively, but they are actively learning. They're contributing to the classroom environment by participating. Okay, so now that we've talked about, or we've done a lesson walkthrough, right? We've gone through the different ways of teaching the story and teaching the unit. And we've talked about different teaching tips. now we can go ahead to the end, and we've rescued our dog, and now we can wrap up the seminar. All right, so a couple of questions in our review. What did we learn today? So go ahead, guys, in the chat box. Tell me some of the things that you learned today. Just something that stood out to you, something that you learned that really that got your attention and really got you thinking about how to organize your classes, how to use stories to learn with kids. Yeah, this is very good. Thank you. What else? Different types of activities, how to motivate. Okay, very good. Excellent. All right, guys. So what did we learn today? We learned about intrinsic motivation, something we should always keep in mind, right? How can we make the lesson more motivating to the students without adding motivation from outside? Then we talked about story-based learning, right? Adding story elements, introducing characters and setting and obstacles and a problem to make the lesson, the overarching kind of the tasks and events in the lesson, give them a kind of unity and cohesion, right? Make it a lot more unified. And then we talked about some phonics teaching tips, how you can do different activities to make the drilling and practicing a lot more fun. Right now, the question that I want to ask you guys is, what did you find helpful? So what was something in this webinar that you found helpful and that you think you can use in your classes? So let's see what we've got. What have you guys, what did you guys find helpful? Okay, very good. How to make more activities. Nice. Excellent, Mohammed. Very good. What else? Games. Okay, nice. Yeah, games are always fun, and it's always great to have more game ideas. And story-based learning. Okay, really nice. So I hope that some of these techniques or strategies, I really hope that you guys can take some of this and actually apply it into your classroom. What else have we got here? The ways of teaching the missing letters and how they help students remember the sounds of letters and spelling of different words. Nice. Okay. So, final question. What would you like to learn more about in the future? So, in the future, if we did another webinar, what is something that you guys would like to learn more about from a teaching point of view? What is something that you would be more interested in? How to prepare kids for blending words. Okay. So teaching sound blending. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Class management. Okay. So how to manage students in the classroom. Mental math for kids. Okay. Math teaching techniques. All right. Noted. So classroom management. Hopefully, if you incorporate story-based learning, a lot of the problems that students have with classroom management, a lot of those things will typically not really be a problem, because hopefully the story is interesting enough that students are paying attention. And especially if they're learning online, they're usually home alone or with like their grandma or something, and so they don't really have anything else to do, and they're not like playing with their classmates or something like that. So those kinds of classroom management issues don't really come up in the online classroom. The main thing that happens when you're teaching online is that students get bored and they stop paying attention and they're looking somewhere else and they're moving around in their chair and they just want to go play, right? So the idea is you want to keep them paying attention. So the story ideas really help in that regard. All right. Now, that is it, everybody. We've come to the end of our phonics teaching, online teaching adventure. And so here, as you can see, they found their dog and everyone is happy. And hopefully you guys are happy with some of the information that you learned today. So the last thing I'd like to say before we wrap up our presentation is thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you again soon, and good luck in your online classes. Thank you.